This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And today I have a very special guest with me because she is going to be starting her own podcast here on New Cleveland Radio. Her name is Betsy Broadman. Some of you may know who she is. I didn't when I first met her, but I certainly do now. And I'm really excited that she's going to be coming on because we all have a journey. And as I've gotten to know Betsy, her journey has been a weaving path, but very, very exciting. And along the way, she's met some very remarkable people, some of them just like you and I, extraordinary individuals just living our lives. So, Betsy, I'm excited that you're joining us. And what I'm hoping we're going to do today is sort of give our listeners a little idea of who you are and why you decided that it's now time to do a podcast.
I think what did it for me was I was thinking about how much I love to talk to people. It was sort of during this COVID time, actually. And because I don't see people anymore. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me turn off my phone. Yeah. Oops. All right. So, one second. I'm very sorry. No, it's someone. I know what it is. I'm sorry. It's important. Whatever. So, I think during COVID and the fact that we weren't getting together, my normal friends and family, my son, and that contact, whatever, and all the things that go with that.
Sure.
The conversations took place basically the way we're doing now.
Exactly.
Zoom and also on the phone. I happen to like the phone much better than texting because you can, all the stuff that's not tactile exactly, but it has the tonal stuff. So I was thinking about that in relationship to all these people in my life I've met along the way, or people that I really want to meet. And I woke up one day and I thought, why not? Why not try and do something that's really all about not me, but all about what the branches of that trunk of life is been or can be, in terms of the people that you can meet. So that's really what this is. It's sort of a desperate or a wonderful, either way. I would want to say more wonderful way of reaching out to people during COVID and getting to know them. They're interesting. So, some of them, I'm going to just say it this way. I've called a number of people that I've known forever, who I haven't talked to in forever, and asked them if they'd be willing just to talk on this podcast. And after talking to them for probably, 30, 40 minutes, they said, absolutely, let's do it. And I was kind of shocked, really, I was. And then there are a lot of other people who, they're just people, they're not even my friends. I just called these people who I read about or who I heard from other people about. And I thought they sounded fascinating, but you never know. As I was telling you, we were talking about, I used to book shows, authors and singers or whatever, and they were great in that capacity. But when you spend time with them and you talk with them, they're not very engaging. They're not very exciting, or they're not very good at that. So one of the things that I think I'd like to try and do with this is to introduce everybody who tunes into this show, Take Two, to these people that kind of come along this path with us and with all of us.
Absolutely.
And I can promise one thing, that you will really, really like these people.
Well, what
from the get-go.
Yep. What I like about your concept is, it's really needed in today's world. Okay. There once was a time that most of us got on the phone, called each other,
Yeah.
and had conversations, and we could be on the phone for hours at a time. I know that I have a girlfriend who lives down in Cincinnati, and we always talked on the phone, but now we don't. Okay. I'm not quite sure why, but she'll send me an instant message through Facebook, or she'll send me an email. Now, if I pick up the phone and call her, we have a conversation, and it's like we just talked yesterday. But for some reason, the art of talking on the phone has sort of gone away with text messaging and emojis. However, Zoom and podcasting is sort of bringing those conversations back. And I'm delighted that you're going to be doing this, because some of the people that we've talked about that, you've reached out to, are such interesting subjects that I may not have known their name when you had said it to me. And then I would go Google them and be like, oh, yeah, she was my favorite actress in a TV program I watched a number of years ago. Like, what's she doing now? And it's like, that'd be interesting. And then you tell me somebody else, and I Googled them and I couldn't find them. And that was even more exciting, because it's like, they're probably an everyday person like me, so I get to learn about them.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing, honestly, the bottom line is they're really good people. They're one in of themselves, they're wonderful people, and their stories, which you will hear, maybe not enough of, probably, because an hour is an hour, but they're the spectrum of people. I guess that's what I'm saying. We're going to start with Jeff Arch, who is just a mensch and a half. He is an amazing author, but the way that we flow when we talk, so much more comes out other than just his screenwriting and his brilliant word. He's a wordsmith and a half. He's just so special. He's really special. And so he'll be our first guest, and then there'll be some singers that everybody knows, and performers, and some really interesting people that I didn't even know were interesting until I talked to them. I just decided to make this a potpourri of people that that everybody would decide for themselves whether they wanted to hear it or not, but
Absolutely.
I thought might be a good choice.
So tell our listeners a little bit about your background. What made you think that this is a nice new path to take? Because you've been behind the scenes a lot in your career too.
I have, but and I must say right off the bat, as you know all too well, I know nothing about podcasting. I actually did not know until I was on one of someone who works for you or with you. Was it 6 months ago or something? I've never really listened to podcasts. I've listened to I have listened to a few, but they're
right.
I don't know if they're merging into what I would call like NPR segments or something, but there's an art. The more I read about podcasts, and the more that now in the last 2 weeks that I've been listening to podcasts, it's a whole new world. I mean, it's astounding to me. So getting back to your question, what I bring to it is just absolute curiosity. I mean, that's really it. And I love talking to people. I love learning about what they are, who they are, where they've been, not literally, But what gets them up in the morning and what really turns them on, and I don't know. I just always since I was a little girl had a fascination about talking with people
Well,
and meeting people.
and what I find fascinating is that, you know, I grew up in an era like you did, you know, with the telephone, writing letters, you know, doing things what I always call the long way. And our kids today think it's, the hard way. Like, you had to wait for somebody to get off the phone to use it. It would be like, yeah, we had one phone in the house, one line. We all didn't carry around, a phone. But I didn't realize that my art of conversation had gone away until I started podcasting, because working in corporate America, everything was, by email and text and memos and short little, sentences. Nothing, was delving into issues. And as a podcaster, I find that I get to know you and your guests so well, but there's always something in those conversations that I can relate to. It's like, hey, I do that too. Or, oh, I remember that as well.
It's also there are some jumping off points, little nuggets that you take with you. Really, you do. I mean, I do. And you keep it somewhere, and it might not be then. You might think about it down the road, a week or two. But as I've been listening to all of these podcasts, some very bizarre ones and some really cool ones. By bizarre, I mean ones I normally wouldn't listen to, but they're fodder for thought. They really are. And they're hysterical. Some of them are they're great because they really give you that laughter and all that stuff we really need right now.
Right.
And some of them are also incredibly thought-provoking, stuff that I just don't get. I mean, I'm taking classes and those are very demanding and thought-provoking, but this is a different way. So the way this worked was I just said, what was this, a week ago? I said, yeah, why not? Let's just do this.
Well, and for those who are listening, one of the things that I think is important in today's world, age should not be identified the way it used to be. We used to look at people and say, hey, once you're 50, once you're 60, you're going to retire. You're not going to be, probably not going to be working. And that's not it anymore. Okay. We are constantly evolving. And many of us who got involved in technology in the 90s, if nothing else, we're using iPhones and computers to communicate. This is your opportunity to find yourself. And, sometimes you need to listen to other people's stories, not to mimic them, but to say, hey, that's something I've always wanted to do.
You mean reflective? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I was talking to a woman earlier today, and she said that it wasn't until she got into her 50s. She looked in the mirror one day and she said, why do I dress this way? This isn't who I am. But for years, she wore her hair a certain way. She wore certain clothes because she thought it was expected of her.
So she was in corporate America, is that right?
She was in corporate America and just trying to fit in, but she wasn't succeeding. And so what she heard around her at that point was, you don't have to wear your hair that way. You don't have to wear that blouse. You don't have to say things a certain way. And so she actually went to a retreat where she claims she found herself. But now she helps individuals of all ages identify their own personalities. And
that's neat.
It is, It
really
was
neat.
amazing because I realized when I was in corporate America, that's exactly what I did too. You know, wore my hair a certain way, wore my makeup, wore clothes a certain way. And then I'd come home and I felt drained because I was play acting all day.
Oh, you're the people that I used to look at and think, how do they do it? I've never, this isn't a judgment or a value statement. I've just never had a job like that. And I don't know what that would be like. I always wondered how I would succeed in that, or how I would live it, how I would possibly get through it, I guess.
And
Um,
and and so that's why meeting you and meeting your guests is going to help a lot of us say, you know what? Yeah, I can do that too. Or
mhm.
I can do something else that I've always wanted to do. So here you are, you're going to law school, correct?
I'm finished with law
Your
school
law
for a long.
school.
Oh no, I'm going to classes that have to do with, bioethics and the law, things that
Okay.
these are all things that, but for COVID, I wouldn't be taking, but they're all things that always have sparked my curiosity, yeah, like just
So
cool classes, very, very cool classes.
thank you. So that shows us that, you know, COVID has been horrible, but it's also given us some good things. It gave you the time to say, hey, I'm going to take these classes because I've always been interested. Um, so for those of you who are listening, you're probably, sitting back and going, well, I still don't know who Betsy is. So what are some of the things she did in the past? So give us a little bit of a history, what kind of work you did, because you said you weren't corporate America.
No, I wasn't. um I'll try and make this brief, and to be really frank, I hate talking about myself, but I do. It's like, oh, you did that. Oh, you did that. I was very political, very politicized from a very young age. And I started working at a station, WBAI Pacifica Radio in New York, at the age of 15 and a half, almost 16. I hung out with a bunch of people who were very political. And I walked in and I said to Larry Josephson, who might probably is listening, and Bob Fass, I just said, you guys, you're not speaking to the young people. And I would love to just give me a shot for an hour a week. And we can do call-ins and we can do blah, blah, blah. So I started doing it that route. And I stayed for a year and it was unbelievable. It was a really, really highly rated. We got high ratings. I mean, it was a great show. It had nothing to do, it had a little to do with me. It had much more to do with the people that called in that actually weren't high school students, that were just really, really interesting people. But then I went on to do things like, and these were all by accident. I went to enroll in graduate school, and in that school at Harvard Ed School, they that year, ironically, were going to pick 10 people. I didn't know this, to do work at Sesame Street and totally revamp it, because it was not multilingual. It was not they needed to do much more. The bottom line was, I can just tell you all about it very briefly. They needed to extend the numbers. They needed to get this, obviously people of different nationalities and colors and blah, blah, blah. So I worked with this brilliant group of people who I lived with basically in New York, and did that for 2 years. That led to more children's TV in Boston at GBH, and then went on to do some other stuff in television, just stuff. And then I went to college, and I went to one college and I ran away.
Oh.
My father dropped me off there, and it was a very prestigious college, but it was not for me. I was cringing, literally. It was the first year they accepted girls, and it was the antithesis of who I was. And I stayed I used to think it was 5 days. I think it was 12 or 13. But no, really, it was, I couldn't breathe, and it wasn't me. So anyway, I left. I went to where a lot of my friends were, and one of my boyfriends were, and it was Madison, Wisconsin, and it was the smartest thing I ever did. I met my best friends, who I still am really close to. I met my husband, who wasn't there, but he came from California to do his dissertation. I met, I met, like, I could just keep going on and on. I met a lot of performers. I met a lot of people who are doing plays and theaters, and just Madison is a very happening place.
Right.
And it was on the cusp of coming out of there. So that was good for me. And while I was there, ironically, my boyfriend, who did the first jazz show with a label called CTI, so there was Ron Carter, there were all these people. He's the day that we landed on the moon, he had to quickly leave. And he said, "You got to take this over," and he just left. So I was left with the jazz. I knew nothing about jazz. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I can't tell you how nice these people were. And I learned a ton of jazz at that point. So I'm just saying my life, I guess what I'm saying is my life just, not because of me, it just kind of led into other things and other adventures. I'll give you one example. I was thinking about this before we started. I went with one of my best friends. Hi, Susan. I know she's listening. We went for 5 weeks to Italy, and we had planned it for 2 years. And we were at some place, I'm not sure. It doesn't matter, in one of the valleys. And we were trying to get to Assisi. And I was driving, and we were on a small road, but we were backed up, and everyone was honking, and you get to the roundabouts.
Right.
And the roundabouts, there's one pole, and it has 35 little signs with the arrows with the towns, but the towns are only this big, and you can't read them, and you just kind of go where you go. And the irony of that is that we didn't go to Assisi. We went to some place called Montepulciano, and we ended up on a mountaintop looking down on a valley. A family was sitting next to us. We ended up eating at their house and staying with them for 4 days. I'm very close friends with them. It was just one of those things. It was one of those miracles. It was just extraordinary. So I think this is similar to that a lot.
What I'm hearing, Betsy, and I know you don't take credit for it.
No.
But it is something inbred in you, okay? That you walk into life with your eyes open, willing to see what's around you and accept what's around you. And when you do that, these adventures can happen. I said for a very long time, I walked around with blinders on, didn't realize it, but I figured I had a path and I kept going down it. So I didn't see any adventures that I could accidentally, get involved in. But 10 years ago, my life changed. And that's when I left corporate America and realized,
can I ask what the reason is?
Because leaving corporate America, I realized that I had been stifled and I didn't have enough confidence in myself, even though I thought I did. Okay. But I kept waiting for other people to say, and what do you think? And because they didn't, I thought they didn't want to hear it. Wow. And so when I left corporate America, I made a decision. My son was finishing up his first 2 years of college. And I saw that he had the world in front of him and somewhat jealous. And I thought to myself, you know what? The world's in front of me. I'm not dead yet. Okay. So let me see what's out there. And the first thing was quitting my job at corporate America and having to look my husband in the eyes and saying, you're not going to have my paycheck anymore. And for him to say, that's fine. And that's when my eyes opened up, that I didn't have to be so narrow. So now when I'm out and about, I hear things, I see things that can just influence your life. And that's why doing these podcasts is so important to me, because if I can get something out of it, so can somebody else.
I really admire you. I don't know what I would do. Change is, I know it sounds like the antithesis of what I've been talking about. Change is very hard for me. It really is. I'm not comfortable with change. It jolts me and it's hard for me. And I really admire that you were able to do that. And look at you now. I mean, this is great.
Well, and again, you know, this gives me the opportunity to meet you, to meet your friends, and
all sorts of people.
And all sorts, you're right. So we're going to start next week. And the name of your podcast is Take Two.
Yep. Do you know how I came up with that?
No. So tell everybody.
So when I was in television, I worked on one film. Some of the stuff that I would see, there were 2 million takes. It was never just 1 or 2, right. Very, very rarely. But I thought that was funny because I saw this as something that would never go right the first time. So I figured I'd call it Take Two. I also thought that it was 2 people talking. So I thought that was a good name for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we will start advertising it as of tomorrow. So for those of you who are listening in, today is Thursday, February 17th. I don't know when you're going to be listening to this because it will be out on the internet indefinitely. So you could be listening to it 5 years from now. So just know we're talking about February 18th, 2022. We will start advertising Take Two. And as soon as I know the exact date and time for your first guest, and you said your first guest is going to be Jeff Arch, right?
It's the 24th at 3:00.
Okay.
So that will go up, probably not then, but probably.
Right. Exactly. So again, for your friends listening, we record this, we record it live, but we don't put it up on the site for about another hour or 2 after. But as soon as it's up, we will have the log on and everybody can listen in. And we hope that you will follow Betsy Broadman and all of her wonderful guests.
Thank you. And it's going to be on other sites as well.
Right. So it will be on YouTube and then it will be on just about every platform that you can think of, from Apple to Google to Spotify. And I know some people don't want to listen on Spotify, so listen on something else. There's plenty of platforms. We will have them listed on on newclevelandradio.net on our website. There will be a page for Betsy and her show, so you can go directly there to get any information you need. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, have a great day. And
thank you.
Thank you. We will talk next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.